My name is Ben O'Brien and I founded Source Market in 2009, so my responsibility is running the business. So I used to live on a very famous produce market and was inspired by the quality of the food that was available there. And over the years I got to know many of the small producers, learned a little bit more about what it takes to get food from field to fork. And then in 2007, I actually moved out of my flat on the market and moved into East London. And suddenly I no longer had all of this amazing produce on my doorstep. And I just felt that should be more accessible. I didn't have the time to actually go back to the market to find the food that I wanted. So I came up with the idea for Source Market, which was to take the quality of product that was available at that market, the general shopping experience and the provenance, but to make it more accessible and to deliver it in more of a convenience store format. So we're located here in an international train station. We're open 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. In general, I would say food travelling unnecessary long distances is a bad thing. My feeling that if something is good and available locally, then we should get it locally. So for example, we're very close to Kent, which is known as the Garden of England, and actually produces amazing apples. So I feel that we should therefore source our apples locally from Kent rather than bringing them in thousands of miles away. Not quite as simple as that always, because for example, people actually want to eat apples all year round. Apples are a seasonal product, they're generally harvested August, September, October. If we want to sell apples in June, that means keeping them in a cold storage facility all year. That actually uses a lot of energy, and actually you have to do some very sort of complicated sums to work out, is it better to keep them in a fridge all year round or bring them in from the southern hemisphere? I mean, overall, the best thing would be if people ate more seasonally, and then they ate apples in autumn when apples are in season, and then in summer they eat things that are in season in summer, such as berries. But that's not how the world necessarily always works. So food miles is absolutely only part of the wider issue. So at its very simplest, food miles is how many miles does it take to get product from A to B, and what's the sort of cost per mile in terms of energy consumption. But you've also got to look into how a product is produced, and products can be produced very differently in different places. So for example, we actually bring in a lot of lamb from New Zealand. New Zealand's got lots of wide open spaces, and actually it's very, very easy for them to produce lamb very efficiently as a result. So then putting that in a frozen shipping container and bringing it over here is relatively efficient. So again, I don't know the exact sums, but this is just an example of something that you would need to look at. There is an argument that rather than using the limited farmland that we have in the UK to produce lamb, it actually might be better to bring it in from New Zealand, where they have a lot more space and can produce it more efficiently, even though there's a lot of food miles bringing something in from effectively the other side of the world. So locally sourced food can sometimes, but not always, be more expensive. Quite often it's not more expensive, because if you transport something from 2 miles down the road to here and then sell it, you cut out a lot of the costs of transferring somewhere to a warehouse and then shipping it out somewhere else. So in an ideal world, it would be cheaper. But sometimes it can be more expensive, because if you produce something locally, it might be produced on a smaller scale, and it might not be a huge agribusiness, so they may not have the economies of scale. So actually it could potentially be more expensive, even after accounting for the fact that transportation costs are lower. I think if you're interested in sourcing food locally, the best place to start would definitely be your local market, specifically a farmer's market if you have it. because there you can go and meet the people that actually produce the food that you're buying and eating. And you can find out a lot more information about how something is produced, what are the ingredients that go into it, and often they let you try a product before you buy it. Unlike going to a supermarket where generally something's packaged, and labelling, whilst there are regulations that govern labelling, can be a little bit deceptive. Certainly one of the issues, for example, is that if a product is packed in the UK, you can put the British flag on it, and when somebody looks at that product on a shelf, the assumption that they make is this is a British product, but actually it might have been produced outside of the UK, shipped here, and then only packed in this country. So sometimes you almost have to be an expert to be able to decipher the information on a label in a supermarket, whereas actually if you talk to the person that makes the product, you generally form a much more accurate idea about what goes into that product.